All right, so you've now picked which legislator you want to target. And the next step, you're going to now map the power relationships between you and your legislator. And this power map is going to form the basis for developing a legislative campaign to win them over. A quick note on logistics. We provided you with a blank power map that you can download and fill out with pen if you like. But the best way to do this is to get together your core activists and to fill out the power map using sticky notes and a blank wall. And we'll explain shortly why this is a much better way to do it. Now, to fill out your power map, you want to create a sticky note for every single individual or organization who might influence your legislator on this issue. That's whether they're going to oppose it or whether they might support it. Now, it can sometimes be hard just off the top of your head to think of all of the players involved. So what I would suggest is first, obviously, create a sticky note for your targets. Create a sticky note for your own organization and your sort of core allies, and move out to any potential allies who you think might support you. From there, you want to think about who is likely to oppose this bill, who's going to oppose this legislation and lobby against you. And then you also want to start thinking about who are the closest allies around your legislator. And this can be where it's really helpful to have some sort of a political insider, not only having crusty activists around the table, someone who knows the political scene immediately surrounding the legislator who you're targeting. Another good idea is to look up the full list of donors to the legislator you're targeting, which is all public information. You can look it up, for example, on Open Secrets. And to just browse through the list and see if you spot any potential allies, either organizations or individuals, and also whether you see any folks from the other side, from the healthcare industry, for example, who you're going to have to contend with. Now that you have sticky notes for all of the players involved, you want to place them on the map according to their level of support or opposition to single-payer healthcare, and also how much power or influence they potentially have over the legislator on this particular issue. So the more supportive they are, the further to the left you want to put them. If they're strongly opposed, you want to put them all the way on the right. If they're neutral, stick them right in the middle. And then for folks who are like really in the inner circle of this legislator, you want to put them at the top of the power map. And if they're way, way on the outside, then you want to put them at the bottom of the power map. Now, to show you how this works, I'm going to introduce a case study from a campaign that I was involved with back between 2006 and 2009 to get then Representative Ed Markey on board HR 676. Now we're going to follow this case study from power mapping all the way through planning the campaign through implementation of the campaign, just to show you how this can work all the way through the process. Now, this campaign was being planned primarily by the group I was involved with, MassCare, as well as the PNHP chapter in Massachusetts and Massachusetts Jobs with Justice. You can see we're on the power map far to the left, but all of us are sort of outsider groups, which can tend to happen with single-issue organizations. So we're a little bit lower on the power map, although all of us did have activists in Ed Markey's district, so we weren't completely without power. However, we had some close allies who were much closer to Representative Markey and who had good relationships with him. This includes the Mass Nurses Association, an IBEW local in the district, an IUE local in the district, and an SEIU local in the district that represented social workers. All of them had a significant number of members in Rep. Markey's districts, as well as a long-term relationship with the representative. On the other side of the power map, we obviously have hospitals, we have pharmaceutical companies, and we have the health insurance industry, all very likely to be opposed to single-payer healthcare. Now, when it came to co-sponsorship, we didn't expect that pharma or the health insurers were going to play a significant role in opposing us. Which is different than if the bill was actually being voted on in Congress. But we worried a little bit about these two for-profit hospitals in the district who Rep. Markey was very close to. We also placed a couple of neutral organizations on the map, including the Mass Medical Society, which actually had been opposed to single-payer, but we had a number of doctors spend decades essentially getting them to agree not to oppose single-payer healthcare. So they were taken out of the picture. And then an advocacy group called Healthcare for All that was fairly powerful, but on the issue of single payer was neither going to oppose nor support it. Now, depending on the district, you may have many more or far fewer players on the map, but once you have them all there, it's time to step back for a minute and assess whether you think, given your current allies on the map, you'll have the power to move your legislator if all of your allies are fully activated. This is a subjective judgment call to some extent, so there's no way I can tell you exactly how to make the assessment. But in general, if your power map looks like a rising hill with all of the players clumped in the lower left corner and the middle and then in the upper right corner, you probably do not have the power and leverage that you're going to need to get your legislator on board, just because your opponents have so much more leverage than you do. On the other hand, if your power map looks like a declining hill with a lot of players lumped in the upper left corner and in the middle and then in the lower right corner, this means you're in excellent shape to move your legislator, because it means you have a lot of allies who can potentially influence the legislator and that your opponents are not in positions of power. Now, in the case of our case study with Ed Markey, we had a fairly flat map. We had a lot of players in the middle at both ends, but we felt like we were in good position because we had so many organizations clumped up on that far left side, meaning they were strong single-payer supporters, and many of them had a degree of leverage and influence over the legislator. So if, like us, you feel like you're in a position to win, to actually move your legislator, you basically want to circle everyone and every organization on the left side of that map. And that's who you're going to reach out to get on board your campaign at the very outset. If, on the other hand, you feel like you're probably not yet in a position to move your legislator, this means you're going to have to enter a longer-term movement building phase. But this power map is still going to be really helpful for that phase. To get into a position to win, you essentially need to move the map so that you have more power than your opponents. And there are two ways you can do this. Now, this is usually what we call outreach work. You do this through coalition building, trying to get organizations and unions to become more and more supportive, and often through internal organizing. So you'll have to work with activists within larger institutions to make them more and more supportive and to pull them over to the left side of the map. And these are ideally groups who are already in positions of leverage and power. Now, the other more transformational form of organizing is where you move your own organizations vertically up the map. That is, you're essentially gaining power. Now, this is done through base building, bringing more individuals into your organizations, getting more folks active, but it can also be done through leadership development, just working with the supporters you have and getting them more and more active. Developing just 4 or 5 new leaders in a legislator's district in your organization can be a game changer for whether you can move that legislator or not. Now, if you're in this phase where you have to do longer-term movement building, this doesn't mean that you can't try and move your legislator, because sometimes running a legislative campaign can be a good way to do coalition building, to do outreach, to do leadership development. But you just have to be clear about what your primary goals are if you're doing that. So now we're going to talk about how to actually run your legislative campaign.